All right, we're recording. Good to go, Juana.
Okay. This is Early Modern Foods in the Cathedral of Seville. In Seville, which is the capital of Andalusia, it's the modernly third largest city in Spain. Beautiful place. I want to retire there if it weren't so darn hot. Anyway, the cathedral there is the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. The people in Milan may argue with you, but they are wrong. Let's see if I can move. There we go. The wealth of the New World flowed through Seville. So in late period, in the 16th century, Seville was extraordinarily wealthy because all the silver, all the gold, all the stuff that was plundered from the New World, most of it came to Europe by way of Seville. There still are palaces, not just the royal palace, which is stunning, but also the palaces of the other noble families from that time. And seeing how the other half lives, oh my goodness. How the other half lives in the 16th century. It's so cool. But that's another class, which I will do at some point. This is a 16th century painting of Seville. So that is what it looked like at the time. And with all of this wealth, of course, flowing into a Catholic country, one builds a giant cathedral. This is another picture of Seville that's done on tile work. I don't think this one is actually the image, maybe from the 16th century. Certainly the tiles themselves are not, but they built giant, huge cathedral. And everything in the medieval part of the city, everything that was in the old walls, is at a certain height, except the cathedral. So if you were, for example, standing on the top of the Torre de Oro, which is the tower, the customs house that all of the gold came through, which is why it's called the Gold Tower. It's right there on the river. From the top of that, you look over the medieval part of Seville, and the cathedral is a whale in a school of tiny fish. It is just an amazing thing. And that's the cathedral right there. And it's a cathedral. It is hugely decorated inside and out. So on the walls inside, there are carvings and decorations everywhere. When you go from the nave, from the main part of the cathedral into the sacristy, there is an archway, as there is going to any, adjunct part of the cathedral. There's an archway, and that archway is covered in carvings of plates of food, and that is what we are going to look at today. There is a book that was published in Spanish with pictures of each of these plates. I took pictures of the plates when I went to the cathedral. One of the guards was very nice and moved away the door, because there's giant doors, because it's a doorway, so that I could get pictures of all of the plates. But the ones that are way up high, and I have a little cell phone, the ones that are way up high, my pictures were just, when you blow them up, they're way too fuzzy. But so the pictures I'm going to show you, most of them are from that. This is a picture I took. This is from the sacristy archway. This is what it looks like inside. But the pictures I'll show you later of each individual plate are actually from the book, because the guy who wrote the book was very nice, but email conversations with him, he could get up on a scaffolding and actually take good pictures. But these carvings were all done between 1533 and 1535. So these are things that were considered food in the 1530s in Spain. So this is not a recipe book, but this is art that shows you food from our time frame in reasonably good detail. So certainly culinary manuscripts are our favorite sources for what to cook, but artwork is another source of information on what the food of the time was. And early period artwork sometimes is a little fuzzy on figuring out what actually that is in that bowl or on that plate. Later period art is a little more detailed, and these are really good detailed pictures. The only thing we're lacking is color, because it's carved stone. So it's really good detail, and you can figure out what the plants and the animals on these plates are. The book is huge, but it's all in Spanish. So, and I've only recently gotten it. So I haven't read it because I have to translate it, and I'm not particularly fluent yet. Maybe by the time I'm done with the book, I'll be far more fluent. That's a hope. So I hope maybe next year or the year after I can do a much more thorough version of this class after I've been able to read the book. So right now we're just going on pictures. So that is the title of the book, the translated title of the book, and the fellow who wrote it, he's a professor at the University of Seville. Prior to my trip to Seville last November, I had had a little email conversation asking him if he had any plans to translate the book. He does not, so I will slog my way through it. And unfortunately, he was out of town while I was going to be in Seville. He was coming back to town the day after I left, because it would have been fabulous to meet this fellow. But anyway, this is the other side of the archway, so that you get more pictures of in context before we get down to individual plates, like this one. And I have each one I've labeled with what they are. These obviously are apples. We don't know what kind, but anybody who's done any studying of apples knows that apples are extraordinarily genetically promiscuous. So finding specific varieties of apples, because apples change variety just generation to generation. It's really, really hard to get specific varieties of apples unless you you know what you're doing. So we know they had apples and that they look like this. So they're not short, squat apples. They're more the size and shape of standard, like Golden Delicious and so on. I'm sure that's not what they tasted like. We don't know if they're green, red, yellow, obviously, because no color, but they're not the short, squat, like little Cox's pippins, which are a 17th century variety that you can still get, which are quite yummy, but they are not shaped like this. So anyway, this is what we know what those apples look like. Next thing, a little bird pecking at some cherries. So we have cherries. We do not know if they're sweet cherries or sour cherries. Most of what I have read regarding period cherries, they tended to be far sourer than the modern common varieties. So if you want to make the assumption these are sour, there's some reason to do so. But that would be an assumption other than, cherries. And little birds pecking at cherries, I would think little birds stuffed with cherries is a dish one can extrapolate from this this little thing here. I'd be happy to do so, and besides that would taste yummy. Next one, walnuts and acorns. Belotas was one word I did not have to look up when I was writing up this thing, because jamón ibérico de belota, which is the best ham on the planet, is called that because the piggies eat acorns. So belotas is acorns. So we have walnuts here and some acorns. So we know they ate those things were considered food as well. Peaches. Oh, yum, yum. I love peaches. And that was not obviously something it was difficult for them to figure out. Those look like peach pits. These look like peaches. This was some of the, in what little I've been able to figure out so far in the text of the book, there were a couple of things where they were a little challenging for the author as to figure out what things were. This, not a challenge. This looks like garlic, heads of garlic, cloves of garlic. That's an easy one. And, you know, how can we have food without garlic? Well, some people do, but I am sorry for those. Here we go. A chestnut branch with the nuts. These look kind of like alien eyeballs to me, but yes, they are chestnuts. Chestnuts are yummy things. I go gather chestnuts every fall. There are chestnuts in period recipe books. And chestnuts are in a big spike. The chestnuts I have seen are in big spiky husks, and then the nuts actually inside of them. These husks are not spiky. It may be a different variety of chestnuts. I don't know. It's possible that over the years the spikes came off, but it doesn't really look like it, because if the spikes were there and some of them came off over the years, there would still be some left. So it's perhaps a different variety of chestnut than what I am used to, because there are American, European, and Asian varieties of chestnuts. Cardoons. These are cardoons. I have seen cardoons in the market. I've seen cardoons in gardens. These are quite obviously cardoons. I don't know that everybody has seen cardoons in their farmers markets, because everybody lives in different places with different growing situations. But yeah, that's what they look like. Cardoons are closely related to artichokes, for those of you who are unfamiliar with them. They look kind of like celery and are very stringy like celery. They taste like artichoke hearts. So quite yummy once you get past all the bitter stringy bits. This is the one that was a challenge for Professor Juan Clemente, but he consulted with various agricultural experts and determined that these are peppers. As we all know, peppers come from the New World. The section on how we determined these were peppers, I think, is the top of the list of the part of the book I'm going to translate, because peppers from the New World, if anybody's going to have them, it'll be the Spaniards who are getting first pick of what comes from the New World. But having peppers in a group of food things, pretty exciting. There are no period recipes I have found that use peppers. So this is, you know, in a bunch of food things, they're having peppers. We have no recipes for European people eating peppers in our time frame that I know of, but these are peppers with the food. That's kind of exciting. So as I said, I will read that part when I translate it and figure out what it says. I will share that with the group when that happens on the Facebook group. So something to look forward to. Hearts of palm. Now that one kind of surprised me, because I had no idea that they were eating hearts of palm. But when you look at what currently is growing in all of the fabulous gardens in Seville, you love gardens, go to Seville. It's great. There are a lot of palm trees. So it is not unusual once you see the context. It's like, oh yeah, it's really hot here. You could grow palms here. But I had not seen them, another item, not seen in any of the recipe books. But as we all know, a lot of period recipe books are very heavy on the meat and very light on the veg. Certainly not all of them, and it's not like they have no veg recipes, but that is certainly not the strength in most culinary manuscripts. So, but I don't know what they did with the hearts of palm. I put them in salad or something, but you know, who knows what they did with them. Here we go. Here are sweets. little pastries. I don't know if if period alfajores, or however you pronounce that, are like period one, like the modern ones, which are little caramel filled pastry things that are quite yummy. This one here has IHS on the pastry, which is a religious of religious significance. So after you go to church on Sunday, you can go have holy donuts that are holy in more than one way. I don't know if these pastries were filled with anything, how they were made, but there are plenty of period Spanish and Portuguese too, if you want to just stick to the Iberian things. Pastry, fried pastry, baked pastries, yummy things. So this is, if you're wondering what they look like after you cook them, you could use these as a model. These, it translates as cupcakes in puff pastry baskets. I can see the pastry part. I don't know that those would be cupcakes. That may be just an interesting way of translating it. This is what Google told me the translation was. Another thing to look more closely in the book as I translate it, because maybe they're puff pastry baskets filled with something, or it could actually be more cake inside cake, because more cake is good, cake is yummy. So what those pastries actually encompass, I will try and figure that out as I translate through the book. But as I said, this is preliminary. This is just pictures today. Inflorescences. I don't know what those are.
Those
I
arches.
couldn't find it. And leaves of wild artichoke. So this, but there's another artichoke one when we get farther on that looks somewhat different. Was somebody saying something? I thought I heard somebody. Okay, anyway. So wild artichokes. They're kind of funny shaped here, but maybe that's what wild artichokes look like. And inflorescences may be a wild plant that grows in Spain that doesn't grow here, or well, it probably could grow here. I live in California. Things that grow in Spain grow in California quite well generally.
Juana,
Yes,
Juana,
yes.
inflorescences are flower heads or groups of flower heads. So these
Oh,
would, yeah. So it's an inflorescence. It's like when your roses have a bloom. That's an inflorescence.
oh, okay. And well, since artichokes are thistle flowers, that makes some sense. Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, so let's go on to the next thingy. Sweets and a knife. There are many plates in here that are something or other and a knife. So we know it's good for anybody who's a knife maker and want to know what eating knives look like. There are a lot of them in this. These are fancy looking sweets. They're very, very decorative. Whether they are formed jellies or it's pastry that's like this, another thing to find out as I go further through the translation of the book. But they're awfully pretty and they're sweet, so they're probably tasty. I will again report back as I translate the thing, but very, very elaborate. I like that. Let's go on to the next one. Squirrel on a bed of hazelnuts. When I was looking at it, I was like, what is that critter? I don't know what that is. Is it a cat? Because we know there's a period recipe for cat. But no, it turns out it's a squirrel on a bed of hazelnuts, which actually probably would taste good. Squirrel with a hazelnut sauce, squirrel with stuffed with hazelnuts, whatever. I'm not sure what squirrels taste like, but any critter tastes somewhat like what you feed it. So I suppose a squirrel that was out in the woods and was actually eating nuts would perhaps be tasty. But I think some of them are rather fatty. This guy doesn't look fatty at all, but depends on the time of year, perhaps, because they fatten up for winter to get through. Onions. There's a class on onions later today or happening now. I don't know. But onions. These are quite obviously onions. And onions are another one of those key ingredients. Many things in our house start with chop up onions and cook them. And then what'll I do? Eggplant and a slug. I am assuming that the slug is not there as food. It's just there to have some sort of other thing on the plate. And you can see that there are blossoms here. They look like to me, they look like squash flowers. I've never grown an eggplant. I don't know if eggplant flowers look kind of like squash blossoms. But these guys obviously are plants. Whether they are the purple ones, the white ones, or some other color or multicolor ones, because you can get all kinds of different eggplants these days. I don't know. It is my understanding that there were small white eggplants available in Spain in period. I don't remember where I got that reference. I just stuck in my head as one of those things that I think they had. So it may be those, and that they were small and white makes sense in calling them eggplant because when they look like eggs. Move things around here on my screen. Just a second, guys. Here we go. A little bird, another one of those little birds. This one time is pecking at grapes. Little birds, lots of period recipes for little birds. Stuff them with grapes, put them in a grape sauce. Use the grapes to make wine or vinegar and cook the little birds with it. All kinds of tasty things can be extrapolated from this plate. Obviously it's grapes because grape leaves. And yes, if the little bird pecks at the grapes, well, then the grapes can be part of your dish of little birds. And here we go, little bird pecking at sloes. Sloes, for those of you who don't know, it's something modernly, the most common reference I can think of for sloes is sloe gin. There's a gin made from them. It's a fruit, looks kind of like a plum. I'm not sure botanically whether or not they're actually related to plums. In England, they are something that people forage often in hedgerows that sloes grow out in among the hedges. If you've looked at the Tudor Monastery Farm or the one of the other Ruth Goodman Marvelous Things, there's a bit where she goes out and forages sloes. I prior to this did not realize that sloes grew in Spain, but I guess they do. They are, I understand, rather astringent, which, you know, if you're little birds tend, I think, to be mostly dark meat rather than white meat. So something astringent with a fatty dark meat, I'm just hazarding a guess there on that, but that might be tasty. Onward to the next one. Pears. Obviously pears. This was not a challenge to figure out what those were. Pears are yummy. I like pears. Quinces. Quinces, we know the Spaniards have quinces, and quinces go great with the cheese. That's, you know, what I like to do with it, but then I'm a cheesemaker. But quince is good for marmalades and other things, as well as for quince paste. Figs and the leaves, which helps you identify that they are actually figs. Though I'm not sure what else you'd guess them to be. They look to me like figs, and I know the fig leaves look like this because there are fig trees in my neighborhood. And another one that there aren't a lot of references to figs in the recipes, but you know, not all food gets written down in recipes. Sweets, almonds and dates. Yes, we have pretty sweets here with things, another IHS. We've got a flower, we have a heraldry here, we have fleur-de-lis. So those of you who like making sweets of various sorts, they did Here are more examples of period molded sweets, whether those were, since there are almonds on the plate, it's possible that those sweets are marzipan, or they could be sugar paste, or they could be made with something completely different. These little round guys may also be more formed sweets because they don't look to me like dates or almonds. These guys look like dates, these guys look like almonds. But I don't know. Again, when I read the book further, when I can actually read it, there will be more information. A pine branch with cones and pine nuts. Pine nuts, that's another one. I don't know about you, I use them fairly often in my cooking, and they are used in modern Spanish cuisine somewhat. But that's another one that I've not seen a lot in period recipes. But this was something they knew was food, because all of these guys are food plates. So radishes. Now, you look at those first glance, you say, oh, those are carrots. You look at the leaves, those are radishes. Those are not carrot tops. Those are radish leaves. And you can still get varieties of radish that are long like this. No idea what color they are, because you can get radishes in a wide variety of colors, and multicolor ones. So what color these guys are, I don't know. If you're really interested, my recommendation would be to talk to Duchess Eleanor Antier, because she is the goddess of period gardening and knows about all of the veggie varieties that they had in period. Her stuff is mostly English, but she has branched out a bit to other parts of Europe. So she might know if you are curious about the radishes. Plums. That's a plum branch with friar plums. They are called friar plums because they look like testicles. I looked that up. It was like, friar plums. What kind of plums are those? And yeah, plums kind of do look like testicles somewhat. Anyway, so these are the more elongated plums. Some plums are very round, some are more elongated. In my markets, they're the French prune plums, tend to be the long ones. Also, damson plums are shaped like this, and I know that damsons are a period variety in England. Perhaps damsons also grew in Spain, or something related to them. So a more elongated plums, when it's plum season, looking in the market, have something, a period recipe with plums in it, you might go for the more elongated shaped ones rather than the spherical ones, if you have that option. Not everybody does. I live in foodie Disneyland. I'm spoiled. It's fun. Sorry. Okie dokie. Here's another one with the knife. This knife is shaped a little differently from the previous knife that we saw. It's a partridge with lemon. It's obviously not a very complicated dish, but partridge with lemon, that would be tasty. You can tell it's lemon. Here's your uncut, here's cut one. So it's not hard to figure out that it's a lemon. It could possibly be an orange, which would also be a tasty combination. But the Professor Juan Clemente said it's a lemon, so I'll believe him, because he knows what he's talking about, I think. Clams. Oh, yum, yum. I like clams. And Seville being not actually on the coast, but close enough to the coast. I mean, it was a major port. Shellfish would not have been unusual. Any kind of fish would not have been unusual for them to have. So, and we will go on to more. Let me move this over so you can see. Oysters, another shellfish. Yum, yum, yum. I love oysters. I'm we're getting oysters soon. These are a fairly flat. Oysters come in a lot of shapes. I don't know how much exposure you guys have to oysters. A lot of my local oyster vendor, these flat ones, or ones shaped like these guys, tend to be Atlantic ones, which makes perfect sense. Spain, Atlantic Ocean, right there, and the Pacific ones are not as flat, in my experience. So that tracks. The Atlantic ones would look like this. On to our next thing, bread, chunks of bread. They look like just big lumps. Nothing fancy here. A lot of much earlier period pictures of people at table. You will see bread more commonly as small rolls like this, rather than the big loaves that in modern times we tend to be a little more familiar with. So small lumps of bread, cut open. Too bad we can't really see anything, if they did anything on the sliced edge to have a little more interest, but lumps of bread, pretty basic. Pig trotters, with perhaps a piece of fruit, I think. But yeah, pig trotters. This is Spain. We eat lots of piggies because piggies is yummy, and you can eat everything but the squeal. So, trotters, whether you boil them down and make soup, or you get gelatin from cooking the trotters, cook them down enough to get the meat out and put that in your sausages, all kinds of lovely things to do with trotters. Oh, queso. I love cheese. I make cheese. Those of you who don't know, I make cheese. So queso is marvelous. The patterning there on the cheese would be from the mold that it is formed in. There are some cheese molds in period were often baskets. Modernly, we use plastic molds, but in period they would have most likely been baskets. I know that traditionally Manchego cheese molds are woven esparto. I got one when I went to Spain last winter. That was fun. Last fall. So cheese, pretty easy, pretty basic. There is some of what I have translated on this indicates that these plates were food because it was something that was for alms for the poor, which makes some sense because the meat in this series of plates are either small birds or offcuts of larger animals, not any of the prime cuts of the animals. And a lot of vegetables. So the theory that it might be alms, and then the money here makes some sense, or it could be the money to go buy your groceries with. Who knows? But a bag of coins, and it's a really good picture of the bag. So if you get period style coins, like I have way too many period style coins, and you want to know what to put them in, well, there's a pretty picture of a period coin bag. Here we go. Wheat, sheaves of wheat. You need something to make that bread with, or porridge, like in the class yesterday. But yes, that's obviously grains. What variety, whether it's wheat or spelt or whatever, don't know. But yeah, wheat. That's pretty basic to what people eat. A strawberry tree branch. I don't know how familiar you guys are with strawberry trees. It is a different thing from strawberry plants on the ground. What we get now in the grocery store as strawberries, those are very modern fruit. Strawberries in period were the little teeny forest strawberries. If you ever see alpine strawberries or forest strawberries, they're the size of the end of your pinky. They are little tiny guys, not very sweet, very intensely flavored. Those are what is similar to period plant strawberries, which are a completely different thing from strawberry trees. They have these red fruits on them. They look like strawberries. They are tasty. They taste kind of like strawberries, but it's a completely different plant. But strawberry tree, I have never seen strawberry tree fruit in any of the period culinary manuscripts that I have seen. So this was kind of new and exciting. I didn't know they ate those. Somebody did. That's cool. Lemons and a snake. Whether the slug back with the eggplants, that I was assuming not food. Snake, however, maybe the snake's there for decoration. Maybe the snake is there as food. I don't really know. But that's what's on this plate. And whether it's a snake or an eel, because eel, we know eel is food. I don't know. That's another thing to look more deeply into the text of the book. But that's what this plate is. Lemons and snake. Bitter oranges. Seville is the street trees in Seville are Seville orange trees. Everywhere. All the street trees. It's amazing. And we were there in late November when the trees are heavy with fruit. I asked a lady who lives there, what do they do? Because, when the trees get ripe, the whole city's just going to be slick and sticky with oranges. But no, the city harvests them and they sell them to the Seville orange marmalade makers. A lot of the convents in Seville actually, that is their main source of income. So the sisters get a discount from the city. The more commercial or marmalade makers pay full price, but the nuns get a discount. And they make all kinds of things with the oranges. Cucumbers. These are cucumbers. You can see they look more to me like what are commonly used as pickling cucumbers in modern cooking, as opposed to the more smooth cucumbers like I would garnish my Pim's cup with. But there are a lot of different varieties of cucumbers, but pickling type cukes that you can get now look like the guys on this plate, at least to me. Pomegranates. We are in Spain after all. We have pomegranates. Pomegranates are yummy. Pomegranates are very pretty. Pomegranates are all over the place in Spain, because Isabella of Castile took pomegranates as her symbol once they kicked the Moors out of Granada, because she was really happy that they kicked the Moors out of Granada, and the symbol of Granada is a pomegranate. They have pomegranates all over everything in Granada. It's even not like on the downspouts, on the public utility covers, to get at the plumbing and things and the sewers in the streets. It's everywhere. It's on everything. It's just like the land of pomegranates, but it's Granada and they're Granadas. So yeah, that's what you did there. Guinea hen with orange and a knife. Another knife, still a different shape from the previous knives. This one is more basic knife shape. It doesn't have any fancy little shapes to it like the other ones. So guinea hen with orange. That would be tasty. poultry and citrus is a good thing. I like that. Actually, I have a vendor nearby that sells guinea hens. I may try making something with orange. I would use a bitter orange because sweet oranges, it is my understanding, were less common. That bitter oranges were the common type of orange in period. But if you like sweet oranges and have guinea hens, go to have a good time with that. Quail and a knife. This knife is very similar to that other knife that we saw, but quail, state bird of California, easy to get here, and they're tasty little buggers. So we shall eat more of them because they are tasty. A skinned hare with a gravy boat. That's what they're saying this is. And a knife, this same shape again. We're sticking now to this pretty basic knife shape. Looks a lot like that squirrel we saw before, but not quite as bony. You don't see the ribs in this creature as much as in the other one. And yeah, it's a hare. Look at those muscular thighs there. That would be tasty meat. So want to eat the bunny rabbits? Eat the bunny rabbits. They are tasty. There are some rabbit recipes in the Iberian recipe manuscripts. So further evidence for the eating of tasty bunny rabbits. Melon and a knife. This knife is a little bit different from the other ones. As you can see, the handle attaches in a unique fashion here. And here's a melon and a slice out of the melon. What kind of melon it is, I don't know. There are wide varieties of melons, which I have done no research on at all because melons are on the very short list of things that I do not like to eat. So I know pretty much diddly squat about melons other than that I don't like them. But for those of you who like melons, if this shape, again, we don't have color, but if this shape resembles some kind of melon that you are familiar with and you like, hey, look at that. You've got some information that it may be a period variety. Nisperos, medlars. Now, Nisperos, if I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but sometimes if you look them up online, it will tell you loquats, and sometimes it will tell you medlars. These are quite obviously medlars and not loquats for anybody who has seen those two different kinds of fruit. I do not know if Nisperos is the more, as loquat is the more modern Spanish usage, if it's the New World Spanish usage as opposed to the Old World Spanish usage, because these plants are like not, these fruit are not the same. They don't taste the same. They don't look the same. I don't know why they got the same word, but they did. But these are medlars, and medlars are very tasty. I have a box full of medlar jelly I made. Anyway, medlars, they look like rose hips on steroids. They taste like really good applesauce with cinnamon. For those of you who are unfamiliar with those. Boiled eggs. Here we go. Plate of hard-boiled eggs. I like that. Huevos duros, hard eggs. As opposed to huevos revolutos, which is scrambled eggs. Sardine and lemon. That's a good combination. I like sardines. Lemon's a good thing to have with little oily fishies. So that's another tasty thing. Fritters. I don't know who took, if any of you took, 10 minutes. Well, I'm getting close. 10 minutes, got Curiel's little class on the fritters yesterday. Looks very similar to what she made. There are also recipes in Sanseville for little fritters. So if you were wondering what shape to make the fritters, there you go. Lamb trotters. We had pig trotters earlier. Lamb trotters, similar usages. Running a long time. I should stop dawdling and go more quickly. Barbells with lemon. Fishies with lemon. big tasty fishies with lemon, also very good. Lettuce leaves, appears to me more of a romaine type rather than any of the more spherical heads. But yeah, lettuce. Empanadas, empanadillas, so small empanadas. There are lots of period recipes in the Spanish manuscripts for empanadas. And yes, little hand pies, yum, yum. Artichokes, I told you earlier on that we had more artichokes. These look more, they're more rounded. They're not that funny, weird shape of the other artichokes. So here we go. Nice spherical artichokes. Oak twigs with acorns, another thing of the acorns. We started out with acorns and walnuts. These are acorns on their own. You can make acorn flour and you can feed acorn to your piggies to make your piggies taste better. Other usages for the acorns, I don't know. I don't know what else they did with them. Let's move this back over here. Carob branches with carob. Since we now have chocolate, I don't know what the point of carob is, but I'm sure some people like it. So there we go. I've never seen it in any period recipe, so I don't know how, no idea how they cooked it. A deer head. When I first saw this, I thought it was a goat's head, but it says it's a deer head. So there we go. As I said, the meats are offcuts, which is perhaps why this may be alms. Pig's head. Here we go. And another knife. This one is much longer and a bit fancier than the other knives we have seen. But yeah, pig's head. All kinds of tasty bits in a pig's head, particularly the cheeks. Duck with lemon and a knife, or an orange. He says lemon, but we all know that ducks and oranges are really, really good together. Suckling pig with a knife. Little baby pig, another knife. Little baby piggies are very tasty. We saw little baby piggies in the butcher shops in Spain on this most recent trip. As you know, as you may have gathered, that this whole thing is my show and tell of my trip to Spain and what I saw there. Bottle of wine. All this food, need a bottle of wine. Little birds on a skewer. Looks like they're hanging from their heads, and you just put them on the skewer and stick them over the fire and yum, yum, eat them up. Citron, it's another variety of citrus like oranges and lemons. Bigger, the ones I have ever seen have fairly thick peels, which is why you candy the peels. I have no idea if that's what was done with these guys. Quarter of a suckling lamb with orange and a knife. So it's a lamb leg with orange and another knife. This one's fairly basic knife, not fancy. Sole, flat fish. As you can see, flat fish, eyes on the top, very flat. Peacock and a lemon. We know that there are period recipes for peacock. I've not seen any in the Spanish, except for there's sauce for peacock, but not actually the cooking thereof. So, but here's an example of peacock in amongst all these food items. Come on, there we go. Silly computer. Anyway, pigeons in a casserole. So how do you cook your pigeons? You stick them in your cazuela and you cook them up. I would probably take their heads off, but if you like pigeon brains, cook them in your cazuela whole, just like that. Woodcocks with orange and a knife. Basic knives again. Woodcocks, longer legs, longer beaks. I've never had a woodcock. I don't know what they taste like. Chicken giblets. We got feet, we got the head, all the bits of your chicken. So don't throw out the bits. You could make something, make soup. Bass with lemon. Here's a big fancy fish. And the last one is a water cup. So I will now look at, let's stop the sharing and let's see what the questions were. Do we have any questions? Beatrice, tell me if we had questions. Or
We
was
did
it just,
not. We had a whole lot of commentary on the food. Anything with hazelnuts is yummy, Leon says. I agree. I pointed out that the slug is purely decorative. You probably shouldn't eat the slug. And in the discussion about was it the flowers, the stuffed blossoms, looks like zucchini flowers, someone says, but that's pretty much it. No questions. So
okay, let me post here the link I found in Amazon for the book.
I
if
posted
anybody
the
wants-
title.
Yeah, okay, well, there's, if you want to go buy the book.
Yep, I may have just purchased the book. My apprentice may have just purchased the book. So if you want the book, you should probably hurry.
It's paperback, it's a big, thick book. of
Nice.
Paperback, but it's in Spanish, so you are forewarned, do not spend $50 on a book you don't want to translate if you don't read Spanish. I want to translate it, so. Yeah. Okay, and it looks like, yeah, I zoomed through all the plates in my time. And if there are no
Okay.
questions, then I guess we can go on to the next class.